What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Bench Podcast. My name's Joey, of course, joined by my brother and co-host, also a little under the weather, flu game for Angel Tovar. How you doing, man?
What's up? A lot of medicine, a lot of sleep. Today's day's kind of off. I'm not sure what time it is because I'm in deep sleep. But I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Got about 7 Advils in me. I'm not for sure if that's healthy or not.
There we go.
I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Because football doesn't stop, so we don't either.
Yeah, you don't need to know what day it is. All you need to know is it's episode 123, and we're pumped about it. If you are listening on YouTube or here for the first time, welcome to the show. And if you do not follow the show or subscribe to the channel, make sure you do that. We're putting out fantasy content, football content, and all things NFL 3 times a week, no matter what. Usually we are at Studio 604 today. Obviously, we're on the road, and just me and Angel. We call that original recipe around here, but we'll be back in the studio soon. With the double barrel producer table and possibly Terrell or even David Adams on the phone. But for today's episode, we're going to get into a little bit more fantasy. I've been diving into fantasy lately. So you notice that's on my mind lately.
Yeah. I think
it slows down, right?
Yeah, I think fantasy is the first thing you get back into as a football fan. Like when you see training camps, you can't really nothing really happens during training camp. So all you can kind of lean towards is like, okay, let's do a fantasy. And that's just a big part of football.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and then
like
now
until September, it's just a big climb until your fantasy draft. That's really what it's all about. It's a big climb till the NFL season, till your fantasy draft, till that week 1, when the NFL is back. And we want to help you with that. Today, we're going to look at a couple of guys who have had some crazy seasons last year. Some seasons where we have projected them and the whole world have projected them to be one of the top fantasy players in the game, and yet had terrible seasons. We're looking at, I think, 5 or 6 bounce back candidates for the 2024-2025 season. And these are guys who can win your league because these are the guys that you take maybe halfway through the draft or toward the end of the draft and maybe get some incredible value with these guys. They are slipping. We have their ADP. We have what it was last year, and hopefully we can pick a winner or two for you here. And if you don't believe me, I'm talking to a Dameon Pierce owner who I believe was going RB 16 last year. And that's how fast things change.
Oh, yeah. Things change fast. Last year, if you listen to the show for a whole year, you realize I'm now full on board with the 0 RB strategy. So the running backs that we talk about today definitely fit that mold of you wait for your running back and get value later. The guys we're talking about later fit that to a T. You can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I want to talk a little strategy too. I think the more I play fantasy, yes, you need to know about the players, and then I feel like you graduate to a level now where it's okay. Now I need to know how to use this information best in a fantasy draft. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts, thanks for joining the audio version. Then, of course, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Search @Bench Show to find us on all of those platforms. This segment is brought to you by Dad Gang Hats. Dad Gang makes the highest quality hats in the apparel industry because they use premium materials, pay close attention to detail, and prioritize durability and comfort. With so many styles, colors, and designs, they absolutely have the right hat for you and the dad in your life. Use code BENCHED76826. That's BENCHD 76826 for 15% off your first purchase. Shop Dad Gang Hats. Quality hats for quality dads. Before we jump into the fantasy stuff, wanted to catch us up on a little bit of news. Because I think our last show, we released it on Cinco de Mayo, which is a Sunday, so a little bit of a gap here. But let's start here in Denver. That's the first one on the board. In fact, you made the list. So
I made it.
To keep their quarterback preference a secret, the Broncos draft board in the draft was totally random and not in order of preference per Albert Breer. Only Sean Payton, George Payton, and Greg Penner knew the actual order. Sean was going to get his guy.
Yeah.
No matter what.
So many red flags here. One, you don't trust your room to keep that a secret. Like the guys in your war room should be the guys you trust or should be able to trust for about 20, you put the board up, 2 days prior in the big room. And I know the Broncos setup it's like a theater almost. Like they have like 5 rows of,
Right.
of seats, so they have about 10. Yeah. So that sucks because you can't that he's entrust his full staff. And two, I feel like the scouts who spent all year scouting people don't know where the big guys have,
Yeah.
placed their guys. It's Sean Payton is gonna do one thing, is he's gonna look like he's right all the time. And this is exactly what that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's also, like, he has total, what's it, plausible deniability now, like, you can't say anything now about who he wanted because his draft board was coded, so no one could read it. I don't know, it's weird, I don't know if it's a red flag for me, it's definitely not, like, a positive thing, it's kinda just like, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't trust your room, um, you're almost like a paranoid type thing, like, you wanna get your guy that badly. Not to mention, I don't know if there's obviously no one clamoring to jump up the flat the board and get Bo Nix. Like, I'm not sure, like, what you're hiding. Like, if that, I don't know, if that was like JJ McCarthy, then maybe there's obviously some chatter about him or even Michael Penix. But Bo Nix to me, just, I mean, he probably would have gone maybe in the late teens, maybe to the Raiders. But I don't
Yeah.
know, kind of interesting. Just him and John Harbaugh, man. They're just gonna do it the way they do it, and they're old
Yeah.
school. And now they're not. It's not even old school. Now it's just like they're just kinda, like, set in their ways, they're doing the things they wanna do it, and they don't really
Yeah.
care what you have to say, and whatever, honestly, doesn't matter if you win. If you win, who cares how they do it? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we gotta wait on that. DeMeco Ryan,
Sweet.
this is an interesting story. The quote he gave is, "I've got JJ Watt's number ready if we need him." Now, the story did come out that JJ Watt, if he was needed, absolutely needed, would consider coming out of retirement, playing for the Texans. I don't know how seriously to take this. I did see JJ Watt on the McAfee show earlier today, and he is doing a really good job at not saying yes or no. He's doing a really good job of not planning his
Yeah.
fucking either one, which obviously, we tend to believe that probably means yes then, because if it's a no, then it's just a no.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Um, I mean, I don't know if he's set if being 2 years. I know he's a Hall of Famer, was a great defensive player, one of the greatest of this era. But sitting out 2 years doesn't has never done has made anyone better or even the same.
Yeah,
Not sure if this is a help or a distraction if it were to happen. But I mean, it's nice. He's a Texans legend. Texans, he's probably their greatest Texan player, the most accolades of all time. So yeah, I
35
mean,
years old
yeah, he might have, if it's for like a playoff run. Yeah, I mean, Eric Weddle a couple years ago came out of retirement
now.
for the Rams, came back. So
God.
yeah, in a rotational role, why not?
The fact that Eric Weddle did that and played safety.
Yeah,
Like, to play D tackle or just go rush the passer on third downs, okay, yeah, 35, no big deal. Eric Weddle came
yeah,
back as a safety. That's
yeah,
incredible. I forgot about that. Moving on here, the Titans are signing former Bengals wide receiver Tyler Boyd. So Tyler Boyd finally gets a landing spot here, and it's in Tennessee. Number one thing I think of is, well, see you, Traylon Burks. We never
yeah.
we never really got to see you, which is interesting because that's basically the guy they traded for AJ Brown. So just
Y-
you could dive into that.
Do
Obviously,
you,
new
do you
receiver.
think do you think he gets traded? Jalen Burks?
I think,
Not. I mean, this new regime, Callahan is. This is not his guy.
yeah, if they didn't trade him, I wouldn't know what their plan is then because I know for sure they're getting calls. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a first round pick a couple years ago. Anytime he has been on the field, he's been really good. He's been really
yeah,
efficient. He has shown all the tools, big, strong, point of catch guy, more of a complete receiver than I think he was originally given credit for.
yeah,
Um, I think he gets traded because I think too many people will call for him, and they just have no need for him now. Like, he is fourth or possibly fifth on their depth chart now, and there's no reason to have that kind of draft pick, let alone that kind of contract, way down there. Yeah, trade him. Why not?
yeah. I mean, I know he does best in the slot. That's kind of where Boyd operates now because Ridley's kind of more of a perimeter, and then Hop is obviously is your natural, number one wideout left side. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if they move on or if not, if they just give Will Levis like, hey, you have 4 wideouts, dude. Like, if
Yeah.
they keep him, like Will Levis has all the opportunity in the world and
Will
might be a nice little draft sleeper. And if you get him late, just throw a dart.
Well, I think I response. Someone brought this up in one of our posts or Instagram or something, and my response was, I think he's a very very interesting stash because if
Yeah,
he gets traded to a team, like it depends what you think about him and what you've seen from him so far. Myself, I'm a believer in Treylon Burks. I've always have.
yeah,
I think it's just an opportunity thing. Which the only red flag there is okay, like why do they not trust this guy? Like what's
yeah.
happening behind the scenes where they don't want to trust a piece of their offense to someone who looks like he can handle it. So, but speaking of Will Levis, I mean, he's going to line up with Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. Of course, you got Hopkins, Ridley, now Tyler Boyd, not to mention Chigakonkwo. Like he has incredible weapons. That AFC South is really shaping up to be like first to
Yeah,
30, like first
yeah,
to 30.
yeah. It's like Tennessee. You don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl, but at least they're going to make it interesting.
Yeah,
Like they're
that's
not
what I'm
going to be
saying.
like, yeah, they're not going to be like a team that just rolls over, like how they've been the last couple years. Not saying they're going to win the whole the AFC South, but they might make it interesting. Might float around 500, maybe a little bit under. Just but it's all up to Will Levis. But on paper, they have some pretty good talent on both sides of the ball now.
Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice, this one sucks, is now under investigation for allegedly hitting a photographer at a club in Dallas Monday night. I'm gonna say this, Rashee. I don't know what you got going on in Dallas, but just get the heck out of Dallas.
Yeah, I
Nothing
understand
good is
Kansas
happening to you
City.
there.
Yeah, Kansas City's probably boring as hell. But I mean, go to Miami. Go anywhere. Dallas is not working out for you, man. Like
I mean, what a
you're,
terrible offseason he's having.
yeah. I
Like,
mean, he won a Super Bowl, but after that, it's like,
yeah,
can you just get out of your own way, please? We've seen this happen with Wilds before. You're not immune to penalty, even though you won a championship and play for Patrick Mahomes. That's you're still gonna. This kid better watch it.
of course, the rumors came out, I think, last week that he's gonna miss at least half the season. We'll see if this turns into a charge and a warrant or something like that. Then I think that it's even worse. And just you hate to see it because this kid just it felt like he earned his role on the world champion Chiefs. Like he was
Yeah,
brought on slowly. He slowly earned trust, and by the time the playoffs got, he was just unstoppable. The chemistry with Mahomes was incredible, and it sucks to see this offseason happen now. Where like,
yeah.
bro, you were on the brink. Like you were literally on the brink. Um, but we'll see what happens. Fantasy wise, real quick. Listen, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. Um, I think those guys are getting a huge bump with Rashee Rice missing. It's interesting because no one quite does what he does,
Mm-hmm.
but just the targets alone, they're going to throw the ball. Not to mention, they lead the league or close to leading the league every year in red zone throwing. They don't run the
Yeah,
ball in the red zone; they throw the ball in the red zone. So, I mean, I think
yeah. I
it's a
would lean.
bump for everyone else.
Yeah, I would lean Marquise Brown between Xavier Worthy and like Hollywood Brown. I would lead Brown obviously because he's been there and done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like I said, those guys don't do it. What Rashee Rice does, like that role, that tough kind of over the middle kind of guy sucks. But fantasy wise, you're thinking to your house stuff like, can I get Marquise Brown? Will they have a season as the number one option for Patrick Mahomes? And like, how's that going to look for me? And Xavier Worthy, can I get him at the end of maybe undrafted even just to see if I roll the dice here?
Um, did you happen to catch the roast of Tom Brady yet?
I did,
Thoughts?
and because of that, I now know if I see an inappropriate joke, it can't be as bad as the jokes that were towards Tom Brady. Holy hell, this guy. Good
Listen,
for you, Tom, for taking it on the chin.
yeah, I mean, I expressed my concern for Tom Brady going into this
Yeah.
because of the divorce and the stuff. Like, he's a very, like, yeah, how do I say it? He's a very, like, hittable target. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and man, he was hit. Like, he was hit hard. But yeah, he took it like a champ. There were some interesting moments in that thing, man. You had the whole Belichick Kraft thing that was very
There
interesting.
was there was two moments I want to talk about real quick.
Oh,
And they're not really funny. I'm just laughing because of the responses towards them. So obviously a lot of jokes about Giselle.
yes.
Then Giselle comes out and says, more or less, I'm deeply offended. Bitch, you're the one who cheated. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if you expect me to feel bad for you, but
Yeah.
this is a roast, and you cheated on Tom Brady. You're gonna get roasted. Two, this is okay. A lot of Aaron Hernandez jokes, and then the wife of the now passed Hernandez came out.
Yeah.
Look, I'm sorry for your loss. We're not discounting the fact that someone lost a life. But also remember, Aaron Hernandez also took a life. Okay, let's not you know what I'm saying, like paying over this because you're more offended about this joke. Aaron Hernandez killed somebody,
Yeah,
so I don't really feel bad.
I was watching the Coach JB show, and he made a good point about this. He said, "Listen, if you're going to the general public to think they're going to defend Aaron Hernandez now, or stray away from downing the guy who just literally just killed people, like that's just get out of
Yeah,
here with that. No, you're not going to get any sympathy from anyone who at least has a logical mind about that." I thought you were going to bring up the Kim Kardashian thing. I thought that was
oh,
my favorite part
well,
of the whole thing was her stepping up there and just getting booed. That's like that
it's
is
just
awesome.
like Kardashian fatigue. Like, can you just get out of this? This is for football. Like, you had
People are
all the
sick
New
of her.
England, you had like the New England legends of the 2000s up there. You had Matt Light, I think the first time, right? You had McGinnis, you had Edelman, you had all these guys who were like our childhood patriots.
Yep.
And then like Kim Kardashian gets her fake ass up there, and like, what do you do? This is for dudes. Like,
I
I
think it's
understand you're
so
hot.
annoying because she just pulled strings to get on that stage.
Yeah,
She knew the right people and she knows everyone. And so she got, 15 seconds or whatever on there
yeah.
thinking, I'm sure everyone in her circle is thinking like this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be awesome. No, Kim, everyone actually in the real world just kind of hates you.
Yeah, let's get out of your little bubble where you
Yeah.
pay everyone to like you. Now let's get to the real world where like you're not relatable and you're kind of annoying. So please get out of Tom Brady's circle because we can make fun of Tom Brady all we want, but at the end of the day, every football guy loves Tom Brady.
Yes.
Besides, like Bills fans or whatever.
Favorite roaster of the night.
Oh man, there was some good ones. There were some good ones, but I don't know her name. The girl who went up there,
Laser.
um, was that her name? Oh my, she was the funniest, and because she just said it all. Was like, man, that was
Yeah.
like Gronk was good. Kevin Hart was obviously good, but I mean
Hey,
that girl,
well,
bless
Gronk
her
got it
heart, dude.
too.
Yeah, yep,
Everyone who had a chance to was just calling him stupid. Like
yeah,
everyone. I thought Tommy Hinchcliffe was amazing.
yeah.
He had toward the end of
It
the night
was,
catch him.
yeah. I think now I like the Peyton Manning shot that Tom Brady took.
That's pretty
Like
good.
sometimes you live in Denver, sometimes you live in Tennessee or whatever, but mainly you'll like live in my shadow. It's like that's pretty good.
That was very good.
I'm like
Um,
that's kind of bars. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
no one
I thought it
said
was great.
I thought for sure Kevin Hart was gonna say it, but Randy Moss bombed hard. He bombed
Yeah,
hard, and I thought for sure Kevin Hart was gonna get up the rafter and just say like, "Well, they can't all work," like something like that. But
Randy
they were
Moss
very
was
nice to him.
like watching, you're like, he's just happy to be there. Like
Yeah,
he genuinely loves Tom Brady. So he's like, I don't really have any crazy stories because I'm very grateful. Even though he's never won a championship, I forgot about. I forgot that he was
yeah.
part of the perfect team that never won it. Yeah,
People went up at him a couple times. He just kind of. It's almost like, yeah, you go at that guy. He's not gonna hit you back. He's just gonna smile at you.
yeah. And also Tom Brady, like in the end around way, admitted to the deflate gate. Like he spent 20 million in the investigation. Could have
Yeah,
paid me, and I would have told you that we did it.
yeah,
Very funny because you can't do shit now because it's already done. So
right.
good for you, Tom. Tom, honestly, at the end of this, dude, you look great.
Hey, came out looking
You
great.
yeah, like good for you. And then I think Kevin Hart gave him a $40,000 watch after. It's like a little bit like thank you for doing this, dude. Tom Brady, another reason why he's the goat. He's able to take a joke. Some people,
Yep,
Aaron Hernandez's wife can't take a joke, even
yeah,
though your husband's literally a murderer.
yep. Let's revisit that.
I
Uh,
will, I will. That made me mad. So
you have this in the news, so I'll cover it here as real quick before we wrap this up. The Broncos have released Ben DiNucci, so that means Jared Stidham, Zach Wilson, Bo Nix are the three quarterbacks that Denver will go into camp with. Obviously, you
what
can
a
still
room,
add guys to the practice squad and stuff like that, but I mean, did you
big
ever think
huge.
that would be the room going into from? I mean, I'll ask you this: do you feel like you've upgraded from Russell Wilson?
I feel like we've taken a lot of not low risk. Well, I think
Yeah,
the Zach Wilson thing was like a low risk
yeah,
six first round swap. Um, yeah, I think it's not as talented as I would like a quarterback room to be. Not a lot of guys in there. You're like, wow, on the field they have the wrong. Zach Wilson has his moments. But this just tells me this is going to be the Bo Nix show for at least 2 years. It's going to be they're going to try to make it work. Zach Wilson will be a capable third string. I think Jared Stidham is probably a little bit better than him. So third string, just add to the room.
Do you think he's going to go straight up? This is the competition. We'll see who wins out of camp.
God, please don't do that. You spent a top 12 pick on a quarterback. Don't make it a competition with Zach Wilson, please. That's one way to lose Bronco fans facing you, Zach.
That's the next thing to see is how Sean Payton now handles this quarterback room with these three guys. Stidham, the first guy he brought there, the guy he's hung on to. He went and traded for Zach Wilson. This is his first round draft pick. It's gonna be interesting to see how he manages this whole thing. Let's take a quick break, and then we're gonna get into fantasy bounce back candidates for this upcoming year. Who can you take later in your draft and maybe get some incredible value? And who's the guy you maybe should be believing?
Say it. Say the word that everyone wants to hear.
Sleeper.
Who's a sleeper this year? Yeah.
Who's a sleeper, and who's that fake sleeper they should probably stay away from and not believe in?
Sleeper.
Another obvious one we'll get out the way. Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, at the receiver position, now we're talking about a guy who hit the perfect landing spot.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they didn't trade the pick. This is where he needed to be. It's a match made in heaven. Top 10 finish here.
Potential number one status here. Jefferson having a new quarterback. Burrow coming off the injury, like I said. The top of the receiver position is a lot more interesting than it's been the last couple of years. If he can convert on volume, the way he converted on volume in college, he's going to go through the roof.
You're looking for guys who get targets, and he's about to be the target monster for this whole team. So, I'm all in on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Malik Neighbors, New York Giants wide receiver. Now, Dynasty could be a good pick. He's been, a lot of people had him over Marvin Harrison Jr.
Wait till they're done with Jones.
I mean, we're going to have to wait a season or two.
That's a game also that I hate playing in Dynasty. When is this guy going to get a quarterback? Talk to Drake London owner, Michael Pittman owners last couple of years, Kyle Pitts, all the Falcons, to George Pickens owners.
Yeah.
Obviously elite talent, all that, but God, when does he get a quarterback?
Giants wideout hasn't been productive since OBJ and fantasy relevant since then.
Any optimism if Drew Lock's the guy?
AJ, who you have next?
Okay, we are back with fantasy bounce back candidates for this upcoming fantasy season. Listen, a lot of you right now are firing up those dynasty drafts, or even drafts now. Some of you do it before training camp and all that. Now that this free agency has calmed down, we've had the draft. We pretty much have a really good idea of what these rosters are going to look like, and now fantasy season has begun. And so, a little bit of insight as to when you're going into your draft and you see a name pop up like we mentioned before, Dameon Pierce, and your little light bulb's going to go off and think, wait a minute, I've seen that name before. He went pretty early last year. He must have had a bad year. Any chance I get him at value here in a bounce back season? Of course, we would say no on that one, but we're going to go through some interesting names here. Some names that honestly I struggle with. I struggle what to think with these guys. Now we were talking about redraft year-to-year leagues. We're not talking about dynasty leagues. You can mention that if you want, but if we are going to make a comment on that, we'll mention dynasty leagues. But for the most part, we'll just be talking about redraft year-to-year leagues. Let's get into it, and we're going to start with Rhamondre Stevenson. This is very, very interesting. Last year, I believe his age 25 year, so still pretty young, 25 years old. At what age do you start to get nervous about running backs?
28, unless they're Derrick Henry, it seems like.
Yeah, so that would be like Joe Mixon right this year, or I think McCaffrey's about to hit 28, Saquon, those guys. So Rhamondre Stevenson last year, as my dog barks in the backyard. Rhamondre Stevenson was kind of coming off a huge year. Only 25 years old. Was the only guy there. Remember Damian Harris had left the building. We were nervous a little bit about James Robinson for a second. Remember that?
Yeah. The hot second that he was in New England Patriot.
Yep. And so Rhamondre was going RB12. So that's being drafted as a low end RB1. Overall, he was going 28.5 average. So 28th under. So in the top 30 overall in fantasy players. That's a huge pick for someone to make. That's at the end of the third round, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
There's 4 guys you're picking. So last year RB12, this year RB21. So I think that's still even a little high. And going average 70th basically overall. So his fallen about 50 spots in the overall, fallen about 12 spots. Now a low-end RB2. As to last year, he was looked at as a low-end RB1. And it's because last year he had 156 carries, 619 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. All of those are below 35th as far as ranking overall.
Yeah.
Rhamondre Stevenson, do you see a bounce back year for this guy fantasy wise?
Yeah, I don't think bounce back. I think more of the same. I think when he was healthy, he had 5 top 20 finishes. He missed 5.5 games. So you can kind of guesstimate maybe he had 2 more in there. I think he's a fine RB2. I don't think the ceiling is as high of him, obviously. I'm not really it's not because of they signed Antonio Gibson, because last year Brian Robinson was able to have a top 10 running back year with Gibson there. Brian Robinson is not as a skilled pass catcher as Stevenson is. Right. Not really worried about that. Just the new offense, a rookie quarterback. I think he's a fine RB2. I think he's a value now because now you have this bad taste in everyone's mouth where this guy kind of underperformed. Even though when he was on the field, yeah, he had 2 or 3 duds, but he's a solid RB2 in an offense that's on paper going to be better because now they have Drake May. They have a new voice, but maybe the new vibes might be more positive this year. I think he's going to be a draft bargain. I think he's still going to obviously he's a starting running back. He's kind of known, but I think you might get him later on, and if he might just be a nice. He's the not the top, but one of the tier 2 of the 0 RB running backs for me, where he's a number 1 guy for an offense who's going to be semi-productive or definitely more productive than like last year.
I don't know about you, but when it comes to running backs, and I'm talking about dynasty here, I don't look further than 3 years down the road or even 2 years. Sometimes, honestly, you're thinking 1 year because the landscape of running backs changes so much so quickly. Rhamondre Stevenson, I'm on board with you. I think he is a value at RB21, and I'm surprised that the fantasy world hasn't reacted more harshly with this. I thought he would fall down a little more, but pretty wild that you can get Rhamondre Stevenson, average 70th overall. That's almost end of the 7th round if you're in a 10-team league, obviously, but a little early if you're in 12-team league. But I don't know. I think Rhamondre is poised for a bounce back year because you look at those. 4 touchdowns, 600 yards. Those are numbers that he's not there in his career. Like he still has the juice. You see it when you watch him play. I do think it's wise to do what you did, and let's see what he was when he actually had the full load, right, to work with.
Yeah,
and he did have that. He was really good still.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So I think he's a fine. And listen, those RB2s, man, come mid-season, everyone wants them, and you can't find them anywhere unless you overpay for them.
Yeah, exactly. Like in mid-season when guys get hurt, you want in your back pocket that safe guy. Yep. You can always, the years of the pass catching RB, those are okay. Sometimes you have those running backs who are just good in like PPR. I think he's good in both because in standard leagues, he's a red zone back, and normally you have a red zone back there. I don't think Antonio Gibson profiles as that. And then on third down, he's very, very good on third down, and they give him the ball in space. And Jared Mayo was there long enough to know about this guy's talent. So yeah, I think he's going to be a value. I think he oddly enough is kind of coming in now as like, hey, this is a boring but safe, like New England always is, a boring and safe running back.
I think something he has going from this year in the hype that he had going from last year in the hype is the fact that he's still probably the most trustworthy offensive option on the Patriots, right? You don't trust any of the receivers still. Drake May's a rookie. It's still, you go down the list of offensive options, that's probably still the guy you want, is Rhamondre Stevenson.
That's probably the only guy. I think I think Hunter Henry might have a nice year this year just because young quarterback with a tight end. I don't see any wideouts being draftable, even rosterable, even because the wideouts you just don't know. But and then Drake May's a rookie quarterback in redraft leagues, standard 1 quarterback leagues. I'm not sure if he's getting drafted. I'm not sure if he's on a roster.
So
I think he's probably the only guy there.
Let's bottom line him real quick. We're thinking mid RB2 is a good value for him. If you can get him later than that, then it's a bargain.
Yeah, high end RB2, very low end RB1.
Yeah. Let's move ahead here with a very, very interesting name that honestly, I'm trying my hardest not to buy into some of the hype I've been hearing. Bryce Young, quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. Last year, right off the bat, to start off his career, going QB 23. So people saw him as a low end QB 2. This year, just out of that range, QB 28, is now getting drafted close to 200th overall. He's really fallen back. Of course, he had the terrible rookie year, didn't reach 3,000 yards passing, just 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, a 33.4 QBR. Just a disaster season for Bryce Young. Do you see any? I mean, they've done some things. Do you see any kind of bounce back coming for Bryce Young where he's a usable? Let's start with those 12-team single quarterback leagues.
No. Yeah. Look here's the thing. His style of play is short game, and they got obviously Deontay Johnson's a very underrated wideout, and he's gonna help him out a lot. Xavier Legette kind of profiles as the raw but talented number one option. But I don't see a lot of guys that's just gonna make me, even if Deontay Johnson went to a better quarterback, I wouldn't be like, he raises the bar because he has Johnson on his team. I am not bought in until I see David Canales and this new coaching staff really. I need about half a season. It might be too late even like by that point to get him. Very tough for me to even draft him in 2 quarterback leagues because he doesn't really run a lot. He doesn't really throw down the field a lot. So it's kind of a safe. I think I'd rather take a shot on like a Drake May or on a Jaden Daniels rather than a Bryce Young. I mean, who knows? It could be just because last year there was a total shit show in Carolina. But yeah, very tough for me to draft this guy who did not look good. Really, he looked good for one game, and that was the game he played C.J. Stroud. That's the only game he looked decent.
Yeah, and this is just this should be a warning to all of you who are going to let Malik Neighbors and even Marvin Harrison Jr. or Blake Corum in LA or all these rookies who you are going to recognize and be eager to get on your team. All these dudes could bust. And even the quarterbacks, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, all these guys can bust. Even the great Caleb Williams. Like, you don't know. And that's why I just always subscribe to listen, if I could find a vet who's young with some upside, I will take him almost every time.
Gotta find those young vets. They're very tough to find.
Yeah. But I think I'd rather go that way. Bryce Young, obviously, former number one overall pick, still just 22 years old. Will turn 23 before the season starts.
Yeah, and last year we saw David Canales what he could do for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think he'll be better in the real football world, fantasy-wise. Yeah, I'm not sniffing it. Even in a 2-quarterback league, possibly a low-end QB2, but not someone you're very excited about. I just don't think you go from 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions to anything that's usable in the fantasy world. Also, honestly, in thinking about listening to you talk about the team construction and kind of what would work for him, he just needs to go watch a bunch of Brock Purdy film and just turn to Brock Purdy at this time. Like, that might work for him. But yeah, I you know me, I don't believe in the whole thing they got going on over there with the Panthers. I think it's all poisonous until David Tepper's out of there, but we will see. Let's move ahead now. Bryce Young, so he's off both of our radars. Let's bottom line that real quick. Bryce Young, don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
This next one is very interesting because I think the most dramatic fall of anyone on our list today is our next guy, and that is the running back who now plays for Washington, Austin Ekeler, the former LA Charger, of course, last year being drafted RB2.
Yeah,
RB2.
This guy was the most underrated player in fantasy for about 2 years, 3 years. He's only catching touchdowns or receiving or scoring touchdowns. Then all of a sudden, that fucking hill hit him like a fucking train, dude.
Went from RB2 to currently he sits average draft position RB34, falling 32 steps in the running back rankings, and even crazier in the overall. He was getting drafted between 4 and 5, now lasting all the way to 108. There's been no fall that will be on this list today, like Austin Ekeler. Now he gets a change of scenery, right? He gets to a situation where they maybe going to believe in him a little more than that final year at the Chargers. That just felt weird. Of course, with the contract going in and they're giving carries to other guys. Austin Ekeler last year, let me pull up his stats real quick just so we get a kind of a view on it. Just 628 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 3.5 yards per carry. Had a bad year. No way around it. Do you see a resurgence now in Washington with what they got going on over there?
You know what? As good as much as I like Jaden Daniels, and I'm a big fan. I'm not sure. Sometimes quarterbacks just fall off. This is not a product of him. I think he'll have a better year. I think last year he had productive games. He had about, I think, 4 in PPR, 4 games over 20 points, which is still passable.
Yeah.
So I think now you have to just rethink what he is. He's not an RB1.
Yeah.
He's just a nice kind of a flex option here. I think he might have a resurgence. You never know. I mean, 29 years old doesn't really, and Brian Robinson's there, who's obviously the goal line back and can take most of that. I think in PPR, he's passable. Might be a value. I think he's become one of the, now he'll be, the fall he's taking is crazy because I'm about to say he's about to be a high-end handcuff because Brian Robinson's about to be the 1A to Ekeler's 1B. But I think he's going to be out there on third down. And I think Jaden Daniels, if he's anything to prospect that people think that he is, maybe he's a good passable guy in PPR. This is how far he's falling down.
I can't believe, that you're saying all that about Austin Ekeler, but that's just where we are. And I do want to clarify something you said for people listening. When Angel says a bargain or a value, he does not mean when you see Austin Ekeler up there in the first 10 rounds that you should take him. You should not take him in the first 10 rounds. In fact, on average, he's going after the 12th round. So you should start to look at him toward the end when you're looking at the draft and you start to recognize literally no one and you're in that part of the draft, then maybe thinking about taking Austin Ekeler.
Yeah, I think you're going to find out real quick who's your low IQ players in your league who start drafting Ekeler in the 4th round. Like, bro, I got Ekeler in the 5th round. Like, there's a reason for that, dude. There's a reason for that.
Did.
Brian Robinson, and Brian Robinson is no slouch. He proved last year that he could be a very good running back. So, not looking great for Ekeler. I think proceed with caution. But I think he's just look at the end of Adrian Peterson's career and Frank Gore's career. Guys who've been on top now. You just end up being like, you're just a guy who I'm not going to trust, but I know your name. He might be rostered next year because of his name more than he should. But, I think he's, at this point, just a high-end handcuff and a bye-week fill-in.
It seems inevitable that he'll play for the Ravens at some point.
Oh, yeah. They'll trade for him. Yeah. And him and Derrick Henry talk about old war stories.
So that's half the names. I'll give you a recap real quick. Rhamondre Stevenson, we both think a bounce back is coming. We think with a healthier year and a different just feel there in New England, he's the most reliable guy in that offense, and he is resurgence, worth well more than RB21 where he's going now. Stay away from Bryce Young, and for the most part, stay away from Austin Ekeler until later in the draft. Let's move ahead here. It pains me to say this name, but it's just true, and that is the tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Goedert. Last year, 59 catches, 590 yards, just 3 touchdowns, 10 yards a catch. I mean, it was a rough year for Dallas Goedert. It's kind of funny. The offense struggled in a year that Dallas Goedert had his worst year. He's kind of been the secret sauce of that offense that no one talks about, because you have Devonta Smith, the number one, the first round pick. You have the AJ Brown, the superstar, all pro wide receiver out there. Jalen Hurts, obviously. But Dallas Goedert is so important to his offense. And last year, I think we saw it in Philly. Now we're talking about comeback. He's 29. He will turn 30 at the end of next season. So still young. Injuries. He hasn't had any big injuries. Knock on some wood here as an Eagle fan. I don't know what to even point at when I look at his decline last year. I don't know. You help me with Dallas Goedert, because it's hard for me being an Eagle fan. What do you think of Dallas Goedert? Any bounce back in there?
I think he's going to be just passable. I think at this point, last year what we saw from Dalton Kincaid, what we saw from David Njoku, and those kind of realm of quarterbacks. At this point, I'm not even sure if Kirk Cousins comes back healthy. I'm not even sure I'm taking Kyle Pitts over him. He's in this range where it's like, I just don't trust you, because one, not only did they, trade for AJ Brown and they drafted, but they just signed him, and they're not going to just have wasted money out there. So he's at best now can be I know he's the third down mover for them, but I'm not sure if that translates to fantasy relevance. I think on the field great guy to have on the field, good on third down, reliable hands, whatever. Fantasy-wise, I'm, Njoku would be – I take Njoku over. I'll take Kincaid over him, who's in that realm of tier 2 or tier 3 even. He's going to be drafted. I'm very curious to see when we get closer to the season what his ADP is then, whatever. But not too much trust.
I didn't that part. Tight end 6 last year, going overall. Tight end 11 so far this year. So people just kind of taking him at the end of the tight end 1 kind of range. 102 overall is kind of where it's going this year. Yeah, unfortunately, I think because last year nothing changed. Like you can look at a couple of these players, like take a Rhamondre Stevenson, who we have optimism about. He was injured. He missed games. The offense was terrible. They didn't have a quarterback. All those different things. You could point to things. Nothing changed here for Dallas Goedert. Like he played with the same guys. He played the same quarterback. He played a lot of the season and just didn't produce. And so I think I don't think the Eagles have a plan for him to be as a big part of that offense, because someone we didn't mention, Saquon Barkley's now in town. And we saw A.J. Brown when the Eagles brought him in, they got A.J. Brown the ball. Well, guess what? They just gave Saquon Barkley one of the biggest contracts a running back's ever gotten. They're going to give him the ball. They're going to throw him the ball.
Yeah.
They're going to give him red zone touches. So, I think Dallas Goedert, unfortunately, is in that back end of the tight end 1s, but you're not really excited to start him. The only time you're excited to start Dallas Goedert is during a bye week.
Yeah, I think what you do with Dallas Goedert is you got to pair him. So if you're away for tight ends, you pair him with Kincaid and Njoku from range 5 to 11. Maybe you pair him with one of those guys and just play matchups, because I'm not sure if he's the set it and forget it tight end that he kind of was 2 years ago.
You know who just name keeps jumping into my head on what he is now, and that's what Tyler Higbee has been for the Rams offense.
Yeah.
He's going to have him some games, but like you said, it's not like a set and forget it type guy. He's right on that edge where you're not quite there yet, but he'll obviously be on rosters. Don't let him go undrafted. But as far as draft him as a bounce back candidate, I think we'd both pump the brakes on that.
Yeah. Shout to Dallas Goedert. At one point last year, he was one of my sleepers. I'm so sorry if you listened to me.
Talk about last year's sleepers. Our next name is Tony Pollard. Last year the Dallas Cowboys, this year the Tennessee Titans. And listen, I when I was putting this show together, I was thinking, I think last year we had some potential RB1 takes for Tony Pollard.
Yeah, we did.
Dallas.
Yes, we did.
Listen, I still stand on it. He had the production the year before. Zeke's now gone. He has the backfield. This is when he was supposed to blow up. Just over 1,000 yards last year, 6 touchdowns, 4 yards per carry. Just wasn't good though. Like even the 1,000 yards is like surprising to me, because he just was not good. There's a reason he's not there anymore. There's a reason he's going to probably go back up Tajay Spears in Tennessee and be a change of pace guy. Getting drafted last year, RB8. This year, RB26. And so,
oh boy,
he is a flex this year to people. 77th overall. So that is, I think, to the 6th round for Tony Pollard. Now, if you're sitting there, all right, it's round 4 or 5, and you begin to look in your 0 RB scheming, is Tony Pollard someone you're giving a look to?
Yeah, I think now you have to just look at him as part of like last year with like Jaylen Warren. I think that's kind of his ceiling now. That some games he's gonna go off. He had 6 top 20 RB games. I think that's obviously that's great.
Yeah,
but he has those lows too. I think the 0 RB strategy, if you end up with him or Tajay Spears, then you'd rather end up with him, just because he's done it before. That's the only reason why. Spears had moments last year, but Pollard did show stuff last year. He didn't just completely X out. He had some moments, but the problem with him is he's going to need to be more productive on the ground, because passing wise, you keep adding guys, because everyone there seemingly can catch the ball out of the backfield. They have 4 wideouts as of this point who are passable to like pretty good. I think I won't say a value. I think just look out for him at the end of the draft and just sit like he's kind of a bye guy. Just let him cook and handcuff. Kind of what Austin Ekeler is, but he's a better version of Austin Ekeler, obviously, because he's better. Yeah, I think he's just a nice handcuff or a nice flex option.
Okay. Let me give you some names here who he's going around. You tell me Pollard or this other name. Zach Moss.
Oh, I'll take Zach Moss as number one option for the Bengals, yeah.
Okay. Gus Edwards.
No, I would take Pollard over Gus.
Okay. Your boy. Honestly, I'm not gonna bring this up yet. We're gonna talk about it later in the show because I totally missed this guy. Brian Robinson Jr.
Brian Robinson.
Do two more. Nick Chubb.
Chubb's a tough one. Chubb's a tough one, but I think if I am looking at their draft board right now, it's Pollard or I think Chubb.
Yeah. I'll do one more. Raheem Mostert. If you talk about sit here, someone who everyone's scared is going to have a fallback year.
Yeah, it's going to be Mostert still. Pollard is going to fall pretty far down.
Yeah. I think those are some names that you'll probably have to make a decision about. But really, the number one question people are going to have is something you mentioned, Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard. At this point, you're going Spears or you're going Pollard?
Yeah, I would go. Honestly, I'm not in my draft strategy. I would go whoever's there second. I'll just pick him. I'll let someone else make the choice, and I'll just pick whoever you don't want because they're kind of the same guy.
Well, default action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do two more actually. Let's do this one quickly because it's not that much of a bounce back, but I do want to talk about him. And that is wide receiver now for the Houston Texans, Stefon Diggs. Last year, getting drafted as wide receiver 4. I mean, he had some elite production for a couple years in a row. 100% deserved that wide receiver 4. And you look at his numbers last year and you think bounce back. He had 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. Like, what do you mean bounce back? We're talking about the end of the year when he pretty much was not part of that offense. Obviously, the Bills ship him off. Now he's part of that machine, seemingly in Houston, part of Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stefon Diggs, wide receiver 4, now wide receiver 24. If you can get him higher than, let's see, 45th overall is kind of average. So that's like round 5, 6. Are you taking him?
I'm taking him. I'm still going to be confident in him. Not as a wideout 1, though. I think he's a high-end wideout 2.
Okay.
I think the game between Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stefon Diggs will be very dangerous. I'm very curious to see who gets picked first because Collins had 1,400 yards last year. Tank Dell's very much not a slouch out. He was a very impressive rookie last year. Yeah. And Diggs, prior to his disastrous finish, started off pretty damn good. In the first 6 weeks, had 4 top 10 wideout finishes. I think he's gonna be fine. I think just temper expectations with him. He's not the same Diggs he was in 2020 Buffalo. Like now he's gonna be a wideout 2, kind of what Nico Collins was last year. Nico Collins wasn't a wideout 1; he's a wideout 2 who had moments of wideout 1. Obviously, I think he's kind of I think he's a wideout 2. Very curious to see target share out the gate and how it evens out because
I think this is a worse version of what we've been dealing with in Seattle with Metcalf and Lockett. Because I think you just have 3 guys who can go off. I mean, I believe we're going to rank these 3 guys, just them 3. And I would have a hard time arguing against anyone's list because it's just like, well, yeah, I could see how you can think that too. Like myself, I would go Nico, Diggs, Dell, but I'm not confident in it.
It's going to be the fantasy question, one of the biggest ones of the offseason as far as value. Like, I think at this point, I'm doing what I'm doing with the Titans backfield. Whichever one of the 3 you don't want, I'll take that guy. Because at least I know that guy's going to be on the field with C.J. Stroud year 2 and is going to be productive.
Yeah, and another perk possibly of going that route is if one of these guys goes down, then whoever you're there holding with, whether that's Diggs, Dell, or Collins, he's going to be a very, very valuable piece now, and league winner type stuff. What's up?
Quick look, Dynasty. If you're drafting this year, how would you rank them? Don't draft them, rank them. Dynasty. Starting this year.
I go Collins, Dell, Diggs.
Okay.
For sure. Collins, Dell, Diggs. I mean, Diggs is a free agent next year as well, but he's going to.
But so is Nico Collins, which is interesting for them. I'm curious how that situation will work out.
I believe.
Yeah, obviously.
Nico's. I don't know what else he has to show people. Like for me,
he did it in. Yeah,
like, what else
in the playoffs?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Dynasty, yeah, for sure. Let me give you some names here to compare with Diggs. Guys, he's going around. You tell me Diggs or this other guy.
Okay.
Christian Kirk.
I'll take Diggs. Diggs. This is PPR. Oh, yeah, Diggs. I'm not gonna make it complicated. Diggs.
Pickens.
Pickens. I love Pickens.
Tough one.
I love Pickens
And
this year.
Pickens now is the top dog there.
Robin Wilson and is the only guy in competition with. Yeah, I'll take Pickens.
Cooper Kupp.
Coop. When in doubt, trust Cooper Kupp. Yeah, Cooper Kupp.
T. Higgins.
I'm not trusting T. Higgins. He hasn't been. He's too hurt. So Diggs at least will be on the field.
And he's going to miss training camp. I feel like he's
Yeah.
going to miss training camp, and it's just going to be not a great season for T. Higgins. Devonta Smith.
I love me some Devonta Smith. I'll take Devonta Smith.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Stefon Diggs is going to be. It's going to be a story all year long. Hopefully, it's a positive one. Listen, I had a take earlier this offseason, and it was very negative about Stefon Diggs and what he might bring to the locker room. I don't hope any of that happens. I love CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I love the Texans are doing. I love D'Amico Ryans. I love all that. I want to throw out one more name that I kind of just stumbled across in looking at these other guys, and that's your boy in Denver, Javonte Williams. Last year, Javonte Williams, I think in dynasty drafts was going like top 10. Like it was a for sure RB1. Obviously, he had I don't want to say he had a bad year. He just did not live up to expectations in the fantasy world. And now here we are, with this version of the Broncos. He's still just 24 years old and won't turn 25 till next year. Last year, didn't break the 1,000-yard mark, 774 yards on 200 carries, just 3 touchdowns. Obviously, that's not at all what people were expecting. We saw it in his rookie year. We saw the 900 yards, the 4 touchdowns, the explosive plays. Any chance that Javonte Williams is the sleeper of the draft this year in fantasy football?
He might be. Like, as a Bronco fan, I'm trying to X that out real quick.
Yeah.
Fantasy-wise, hard to trust Javonte Williams. Last year, bro, what you were the 1A. I know P. Ryan had his moments and McLaughlin had his moments, but it was still his backfield. He was still 1A in that backfield. I know Russell Wilson didn't, he had moments where he just took sacks instead of going to the check down. Not overly confident in Javonte Williams fantasy wise. Might have a bounce back. Might be a guy you target in the 0 RB strategy as a late round dart throw. I think he can do everything on the field. I'm just curious to see if they give him that workload again this year after they saw it last year. And I know you can make the excuse 1 year off the ACL. It's usually the second year off the ACL where they get back to normal. Not everyone's Breece Hall. But still, he was on the field. He looked decent by at least – I watched every Bronco game. At least by week 10, he looked like he was getting back to what he once was, which was the powerful, explosive back that we all saw rookie year and then into his sophomore year. Interesting to see where he lands ADP-wise. Tough, though. He's a tough guy to scout.
I'll tell you what, I'll be targeting Javonte Williams this year. I believe in it. I believe in the bounce back for Javonte. I think the year after the ACL thing is a real thing, and anything else you've seen is an outlier. They usually don't come back that quickly, and they don't always come back. I think we saw that he's on his way back last year. I saw enough explosion. I saw enough tackle breaking. I still think he is by far the best running back in that backfield, the most complete running back in that backfield. I think Bo Nix is going to be a check down monster. He's going to get some catches this year. I think he's the best runner. I think if you're looking at Javonte Williams, let me get his ADP real quick. But if you're looking at him anywhere past like where like the top 12 have gone, I think I'm jumping at him because I think he can possibly give you an RB1 type year. He's going ADP 71 right now, so he's fallen a lot. I think RB23, so a back end RB2. Absolutely, I am jumping for joy if Javonte Williams is my RB2.
Yeah, 2 guys we mentioned today who I would take in my 0 RB strategy is Rhamondre Stevenson of the Patriots and now Javonte Williams. Yeah, I think he's worth the dart though because he's talented. At least he's not some guy who's just getting volume. He's not really talented. He's a talented running back because last year he didn't produce. Injury, maybe that held him back. Maybe whatever happened. the toxicity of that locker room last year might have caused, I don't know what it was. I'm not going to make excuses for him. But as a Bronco fan, I'm always believing him. Interesting to see where he lands. Yeah, he's one of those guys in 0 RB. I mean, last year we didn't see that Ryan Robinson turned into a top 10 running back. He's profiles as a more talented running back than him, and in an offense, which now at least should be better than it was last year.
And that's part of the reason I'm into him is because the guys he's getting drafted around. It's like, how is Javonte Williams in this group? You know what I'm saying? Like, guys he's getting drafted around. Let me throw out some names: Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Jalen Warren, Brian Robinson, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Amir White. Javonte Williams checks all the boxes. He has the talent. He's now healthy. He's the only guy in that backfield. He should get the carries. Like, he checks a lot of fantasy boxes, which would lead you to believe that last year might have just been a weird year.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, coming off an ACL, he's still just 24 years old. Listen, I've kind of talked myself into this more as we've been talking about it. Give me Javonte Williams. If you get him at running back 2, jump on that. Like, Javonte Williams, I'm buying the comeback season.
Here's to me as a Broncos fan wishing that he would return to that rookie state. Please.
I'll be the cheerleader, so you don't have to put stuff out there. That's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope. I'm just very curious to see George Pickens because that's my guy this year. That's my deep sleeper. But like we said, a lot of guys out there who don't get fooled by names this year. A lot of names, a lot of guys aging this year. Don't get fooled by names. Do your research. I know we're gonna have a lot of draft stuff. Follow us because we love this shit. And when we talk about this during the season, we talk about real football, fantasy football, probably about the same amount. It's just as important.
Yeah. That's our show for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for episode 123. That's crazy. Hey, congrats to you, Ains. Congrats to the whole team. We reached 400 subscribers on YouTube. Very excited about that. We're not an 8-year-old yet. So, share it with a friend.
That's pretty good, I think.
What do we tell a friend? Be a friend, tell a friend. Share the channel with someone. And especially as a fantasy season gets closer, sharing a lot of good information, like Angel said. That's our show today. We will see you later on in the week with one more show. Have a great Thursday.
Peace.